So, hi, I'm Michał. Today we're going to focus on reason, which is the front-end part of the talk. And then, depending on how it goes and how you like it, and it's recorded. And basically, if our little experiment today is successful, we'll then go into Servant at a certain depth, depending on how much time we've got left. So the reason why I chose reason is for front-end exposition is kind of twofold. So first of all, it's a really fast language in the sense that it compiles to a really fast JavaScript. On contrary, PureScript is way better when it comes to like language features. It has, higher kind of records or whatever. But I like the fact that this has a minimum, like a very basic amount of really solid type system features, but when at the same time it generates very fast JavaScript that in many cases is actually way faster than just handwritten JavaScript, because you can completely remove all of the runtime checking of immutability because we've got that up compiled. So we're going to first get a small look of the syntax and just a high-level overview how it works. Then I'm going to go through the code of an example app with you. And then if you've seen, you may have seen in the repo, there are issues in the repo. There is a 20-something of them. And the idea is that you'll grab one or many issues and you'll code them yourself.
What's the link again? Can you post it to Discord?
I can. Can someone else post it? Because
sure.
I have like hands now. So the app that we're going to code is actually in this tab. So this is the app. This is a very, very bare bones Mario game in a sense that we have Mario and it actually moves in a smooth way. It can jump and there's ground and there's actually scaffolding for collision detection and stuff. So right now Mario can jump quite high actually. So with your newfound reason knowledge, you might be able to fix it. So let's go. So we have types in reason. Types can depend on other types. So maybe you call something in reason, basically. I'm assuming Haskell knowledge here. So this is maybe there are no monads in reason and in OCaml, like there are in Haskell. Basically, all of the feature set that reason has is what OCaml has. It directly compiles to OCaml, and then that OCaml compiles to JavaScript in turn. We have records. Records can have fields that are typed, and they built into lists, into arrays in JavaScript. So when you have an instance of this record, when it's built into JavaScript, it's a two-element list, and all of the type information is only available at build time. So this is super efficient when it comes to representation. Of course, records can hold other types like functions, or what we call them maybe, or which is something here. And we can have functions, functions of multiple parameters. They're carried by default, and you apply them with brackets though, but they're still carried. They might not be carried in the output code, but they're carried when you write them. So we have the usual, add to function. We can have a value. There is type inference, obviously, so you don't have to write all of the types. You can also, how many of you know JavaScript? How many of you regularly work with JavaScript? Okay, great. So we also have JavaScript objects, which you write in a very similar way to records, although you use the dot and then you have your keys in quotes, and that builds into a JavaScript object, so you can interact with JavaScript. You shouldn't really, unless you have a very special need for that, you shouldn't really use those objects in Reason code. So here we create an instance of an object where pub is a publicly visible field and it's lit. And this actually builds to the JavaScript object. And then you can access whatever's at the key with the double hash. And actually inside of those objects you can have mutable fields as well. You just mark them as mutable and they're mutable. That's mostly to interact with the browser and other JavaScript for FFI. And there are also mutable references. So reference can take any type, and it's marked as bool. I mean, here it's a bool, and you can update it with that fancy standard update from other languages, and then you dereference the reference through this. Sorry, I don't know the name. And it's mutable. It's implemented as a list that has either 0 elements or the first element is a mutable reference. So it's also very lightweight in the browser. There are more fancy features included in recent BattleScript builds. So basically, the way that compilers are stacked is that you have the Reason compiler, it goes into Occam, and then the BattleScript is the backend of Occam that generates JavaScript. So you can use records, but you can use a type as a record, but if you use the JS converter, it'll actually be represented as an object by the compiler. And this means an open object. So here is a closed object that can only have those specified fields, and an open object here can have those 2 fields at least, and then some other fields. If you want even more type safety when interacting with other JavaScript, you can specify the new type converter. When this is derived, this becomes the accessor, becomes an abstract type, which you can't see into. So this way, you're sure that only your FFI accepts those values, and you won't modify those from your code. Yeah, so there is features for handling maybe. So like that's the option. One difference actually from Haskell is that type names are lowercase, and then constructors are uppercase. And you can also mark something as nullable. So you could have a nullable string, so a string that can be null, and the type system will of course check that. And you can also use some special decorators. There is no need to remember them now, it's just to expose you to those. That allow you to automatically deal with nullable values you get from other JavaScript, and they get automatically converted to option, but only when it's needed. So sometimes it can actually abstract out that option, and you won't have any runtime cost of doing the conversion. Like here. So we get an element, and if it's nothing, we just log. If it's an element, we log the element. So this builds into that code, right? So it checks if match is null, and if it's null, it does something, but if it's not null, it doesn't. But in that case, if you write it like that, it will actually So it never wraps it into an option, because an option is either a 0 or a one element list. So if it can, in those cases where you use the value right away and you don't assign it to a variable, it cannot wrap it into the one element list as you would normally do.
So,
Yeah.
so the second example is when it's wraps it.
Yes. So in here it will either log a 0 or a one element list, right? That's because it wraps it by default. So if you're not console logging here but passing it somewhere further, it would be an option that's wrapped. But in here, because you're actually not assigning it to any value, it will not do the wrapping, and it'll just check it as
Okay.
null.
Why would it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it because not every
It's for
time?
performance reasons only.
Yeah. No, my question is because not every tab has a well-defined unboxed null, right?
No, it doesn't depend on the type. What this converter does, it converts your null or possibly a nullable value into an option. So into a well-defined reason data type, right? That underneath is either a 0 or a one element list. Right? So it
Okay.
builds into a 0 or
I'm going to ask another question.
Yeah.
So, can reason strings within reason, can they be null?
If they're marked as nullable, then yes. But strings themselves cannot be null. Strings are
Okay.
still strings.
Yeah, and also I believe the actual term for that is boxing, not necessarily wrapping.
Yes. And there is a module system, which is weird to someone coming from other languages, because you don't have modules. I mean, you do have modules in files, but you include things by using a capitalized file name. So say we had an observable file, observable.re, we can just use any function that file exports at any place just by using the capitalized file name. And we can also have modules inside the file. We do it like that. And then you can use the values from the other module by using the capitalized, like the name of the module. But you can then as well put this into the first .re file, and nothing will change in this module. And you can also import in a sense, so put things from a given module into scope with an open command. This is equivalent. And there are pipes. There is a standard function application, so we have a function from A to B, we take A and we return B. There is also a flipped function application where we take the parameter first and then the function from A to B. That second pipe is actually built into the language. You can't really check its type. It will tell you that the type is unknown because it's actually built on the language level, and it's eliminated at build time. So it's if you call this is a function call, but if you call this, it will just unroll into an application like that. So let's go into the code. So here is our tiny little Mario game. So first we get the DOM bindings into the scope. Then we say we include the styles because we want some colors and we like pretty colors. Then we have bindings to the canvas module. So
You can, that's a less file, right? Or
yes. So I use Webpack here.
Okay.
The way it works is it builds into a JavaScript file, and then Webpack processes the JavaScript file And the DS row pragma just concatenates whatever is inside the brackets as raw JavaScript. So you shouldn't use it for FFI unless there's no other way. I use it here to just include a style file.
Okay, so you can simply include style file within your...
Yes, or any resource you please. So we need to bind to the canvas module because there is no canvas bindings in Reason right now. They're working on it in the DOM module. So we're creating a record. That record is marked as an abstract record, which means it will be represented as a JavaScript object, because that context object will represent the context of Canvas. And it is marked as a private object as well, because we don't allow constructors to be made. So this way, we can't create those contexts. They have to come from the FFI. Yeah.
So I would assume that having a private record means you cannot create it outside of the module.
No, in this case it means you can't create it inside of Reason.
Oh, okay.
It has to come externally from the FFI.
Okay.
I don't think there is a point of going into like super great detail into those external bindings. The main theme is that if you look at the Canvas API, for instance, the fill rect functions in here, the float and int ones, they take a list of 4 ints and a list of 4 floats, and they fill a rectangle to a given color. And this function, it will actually build into something like context fill rect and our 4 floats. So it uses the first parameter as the object it runs on, and then the 4 parameters as the parameters of the function. And you can either use an empty string in here if the name of the function you run in JavaScript is the same as the name of the function in Reason, or you can use any name you wish. So in this case, we have 2 ways. You can either pass a float to the rectangle or an integer, and then you have to pass the name of the function in JavaScript, which in this case is the same because the function is polymorphic. And then we have the definition of the world. You can't have mutually dependent types in Reason or in Occam without actually putting them into this in this AND block. So in this case, world and element can be mutually recursive. If they weren't in the AND block, they couldn't, mostly because in contrary to Haskell, programs in Occam are read from the top instead of resolved from the beginning of them. So we create an environment which is an array of arrays. In our case, each block here is a block of an environment, and then we fill in the solid blocks with the ground. We have a hero that has a position and speed, so it's a 4-axis element that takes the float type parameter. We have a position of our camera, which is also the same. We have a scene, and the scene is the context, and it has some parameters depending on what's happening in the scene. And then the last animation time is an internal value. We can generate the environment. We generate it by just creating a flat line of floors. So we have different element types. It can be floor or stone or active. And right now only floor is implemented. And so we create one of those, and then we fill in a matrix where the first dimension is length and the second dimension is 1 with just basically a list of base elements. And then we can paint our canvas. We open the canvas bindings that we've written earlier in here, so we get all of these functions without actually having to write the canvas dot context to the and so on and so forth. And we do some painting. We call some functions. We use the pipe operator in here, and it paints through the FFI onto our canvas. We can also bind into what user does. So we can essentially bind into the standard element APIs, and we can do different actions depending on which keys are pressed. We use that to actually figure out if the user is moving or not. And then we can create an empty world, and it's created. And at the end, we run the main loop, which just listens for keyboard events and runs the whole thing. So, would you like to add some features?
Sure.
Okay, so if you go to GitHub, anyhow, you go to the issues page. I've run out of space to display my bar idle on it. If you go to the issues page, there are issues. You go into the Mario folder, and then there you have all of the source code. You npm install inside of that folder, and you can code. No, tylko chodzi o to, że nie można zrobiło też z tego niemieckiego, musieliśmy się przeładować. Tak, ale ja nie mogę się przelewać. To mam pasek zabarczony białym. And if you have any questions, and maybe you need some guidance, which issue to choose, or maybe what to do, then ask me. Or maybe you don't understand what a certain construct does, then ask me as well. Here you also have very useful links. First is the Backle script docs. It describes all of the lower level features, mostly of the FFI. And then the Reason docs, they describe Reason itself, but they don't really go in depth into the FFI, which at the end of the day is what you mostly interact with. So the kind of the vision I have for this is that if we manage to add some features, and tomorrow we'll add some of the server-side communication, which I have also a mock-up of, then we'll be able to release a whole game by the end of this. That would be pretty awesome, right?
So I think it would be good at least to show some debugging stuff, like what was the state of the world right now, and then what's the next one?
Oh, you can just... So if you go to the end, it goes into the main loop, right?
Yeah.
Main look handles the events, but that's not really interesting. And then it does the request frame, which is how it loops to get to
where it paints every time.
Yes.
Right?
So here you can bind and you can just console log the current world and the new world.
And it was just js.log?
Yes, just with an upper J. So you just do.
All right.
Like this, and it's just a function of one parameter. So after the painting of the new world, you can do the JS. Actually, before the painting even. And we need the semicolons at the end of the line.
Okay, cool.
So the references a mutable reference, right? So current world is
so you gotta use the caret if it's a mutable reference whenever you wanna use it?
yes, well, in here we're using immutable data, but we use the same mutable reference to keep track of the current state of the world because there is no state mono.
Yeah. So if you wanna pass the current world to step, so you have to use the caret.
Yes, you have to use the caret to dereference it and get the actual immutable data.
So is it like an atom enclosure, for example?
Basically.
A bit like
Yeah.
like a ref.
And also in the paint function, when creating the issues, I've been adding them, coming up with more ridiculous schemas as I went. So the oldest issues are probably the easiest. In Paint, the most interesting, in here you have basically setting up some variables and some styles. We draw the whole background as a blue color, and then we draw the tiles in here. So we loop through all the tiles. We figure out where each tile should be, and we paint each tile with the fill rect float column. And then we paint our hero, which is also effectively a tile, just half the width.
So
Yeah.
this program is written in like side-affecting manner with
Yes.
callback,
Yes.
and there are probably bindings to React or something like that.
Well, there are bindings from Reason to React, yes. This doesn't use them. It would be impossible to get those right now. Oh, and one more curious bit, because there are no type classes, you have to specify whether you operate on ints and or floats. And if you want to operate on floats, you need the dot after an operation. You can, for now, basically ignore, I think, the find collisions part. It's there to allow our hero to not fall into the ground, but stay on. And when you choose an issue, please claim it so that we have one person working on it.
How do we claim it?
Oh, and can you, on GitHub, if you have a GitHub account, you,
It's not possible.
oh, maybe
It's not.
well, let me
You
fix
can
it.
just leave a comment.
Yeah, you can leave a comment, and I'll fix it in a second.
Are you able to build it?
Yeah. Did you run npm install?
No, I didn't. Shall I?
Yeah.
How do you see that? Ah, I don't do that. If you don't check the permissions, you don't get the problem. So, no. Then the code is blue and so on.
Oh, well, so yeah, you should leave a comment because I have to add everyone to the collaborator. Comment is fine as well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is it running even though I get warnings?
Yes, warnings are fine.
Okay.
So what did you run?
Just yarn and yarn start or yarn one.
Okay, and then you have to run npm run dev.
But if I type npm run field, it doesn't.
Yeah, so what you need is, npm start, run start or whatever, and then npm run dev. One will run the compiler, and the other will run the dev server so that you can actually see what you're modifying.
Alright.
Yes, seems to work.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, works.
Nice.
Alright. Good work.
You already know how it works.
I'm getting the same thing. I thought I could read it.
Yes.
Those are warnings.
Is this important?
I don't know.
These are unexpected. So it's not.
How, do you have like a global version of Webpack? Maybe we can,
No, I didn't use minus G.
but previously, like,
Oh, no idea.
Did you run npm install?
Yeah, it's
Mario
a
Pro?
plugin. You have, I think you have to know version because it's basically not the structure. If you had npm, we had npm?
NP
And
now the version?
NPM?
but do know the nodes that
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
yeah, so it's not, so the plugin, on Webpack has dependency on other systems.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
What should we run first?
npm start.
Yeah.
Just NPM.
Give it.
And then another terminal. If I remember correctly, so start will wash the assets and there is a weird bug in the reason that sometimes if you modify something, it doesn't propagate to the build files, and you have to save twice. Yeah, that's not really a good solution.
You want to close this door from the socket? I'm just sticking my head in to see what's going on.
It's reasonable. Well, it works, but only if your tiles are on 0. But they're only there.
No. No,
So
but
can
the comparison. Like, comparison.
Oh, it was
Comparison.
your speed. Yes. Sorry.
It's missing.
Yes, I have an issue.
No,
So why does the class says run build?
sorry,
Sure.
so it took me a while to write it. So yeah, we have a jumping solution. But can you make it so you can't double, like if you jump from 0, right? Or y over 0 on the top.
Yes. For a brief moment.
Yes. Can you make it so that you can't double jump it, or maybe?
It's almost impossible. Yes, I can. It's almost impossible. Because it's on floats. So.
And also it's a problem of comparing flows, because yes, the only reason why it's 0 is it sets it at 0.
Yes, I know. And on the top it's almost never gets to 0 because it's fractional. Very small.
And one cool thing I really like about this FFI is the bindings into the date module, so you probably used the new date API, are super clean. So this whole thing, this allows you to create a new date instance with the new. And you just get a new instance, which is of an abstract type, so you can't really do anything to it that's not allowed by the implementation. Yeah, and if you have any questions, want to bounce some ideas, or it doesn't work, or you think it's stupid, then let me know. We also take care to not run it over 60 FPS because we're waiting for a frame from the browser with So basically the idea was if you want to grab the repo and then try some options. I guess once we don't have the bugs and maybe we have more involving levels than just a flat line, we can't go out of the left side or the right side, and we have enemies, I think we're in a good state to actually have a game. And if you think the way of implementing something, you can find a more interesting way, or maybe a more creative way, then feel free, and this game can look differently than I envisioned, so we can kind of collaboratively create one. Okay, so it's break time, so if you want to continue in the break, you can, but it's break time. Okay, and the break, so how many people have it running successfully? Great. He doesn't have it running. You didn't say it runs for you. Does it run for you?
I'm not doing it.
No, okay.
Sorry. I have to work on my thesis.
No worries. Do you need help? Okay.
Hey, so
Mhm.
if I wanna, for example, use field text, I gotta use.
You have to add another method onto the context here.
Okay.
Is it a method?
Yeah, in the context.
Okay, so what?
So just add it here.
No, you add another method like that.
Yeah.
So the using the send. Well, I wouldn't remove the existing method.
No, it's not. I just copied it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first parameter will have to be context. No, it can be an empty string if the name is the same as the name here.
Exactly, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first parameter is the context, and then the rest is the parameters that
Alright.
function
Got
accepts.
it. Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple of bits that are added just for forward compatibility, like we only use the floor element type right now, but if you wanted to add a bouncy elements, you could just make them another element type, and then case later in Paint. You've made one?
Yeah.
Nice. Just I don't have internet there. Yeah, looks good. So the hero will now not escape the level. It's bound. I can just walk through. Yeah, I can just walk through.
He just tells me that he expects somewhere here ints while I'm array mapping over array of 4x elements of float.
Mm-hmm.
and here are floats everywhere, but he complains that
Well, it looks so. Tell me where you define the munitions.
where you defined world. It's
Probably
somewhere in the
top,
beginning.
yeah, here.
It float.
So it's an array of a 4-axis element. Okay, so it should have the x, y, whatever. Yes.
Yeah, it's the same as
As the others.
and here just.
So what's the error?
Here you've got it. 4-axis element. He expects it typed with int. And no.
Yes, that's because we don't have type classes. So those are pluses from ints and not pluses for floats. You have to do a dot after each plus or minus.
Okay, I was curious. I saw those.
Yeah.
That's all.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I mean, let's save and check if it's actually. I can just walk to your desk. Really, it'll be easier. Like,
It helps.
yeah.
I see. It's okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. Pisz. Nie. Mogę ci pomóc teraz. Pisz. Będziemy mieli gierę, będzie super. Będzie nasza wspólna giera.
To sprzedaż za miliony i będziemy...
Tak, jest,
To jest nowa gra.
tak, na GPL-u jest. There's actually a Konami code issue. You can add a Konami code. Yeah, so now we can't double jump, even if we want it. And we can't go out of on the left. So, progress. We can still go out of the screen. Oh yeah, one error that's not really an issue yet is that it doesn't paint here. The floor is there, but it doesn't paint outside of that box.
Paste for me.
Yeah, could be perfect for you. Oh, it paints for you. Yeah, it's because your window size is a multiplier. If you multiply the floor size by an integer, it just fits your window size. But if you make it slightly different, it won't paint. I'll make an issue.
Can you explain how the fill style set function works?
Oh yeah, let me show here. It's defined.
Context that you have a fill style there, right? Is it somehow using that?
Yeah, so we open the canvas module. So it's essentially what we're doing here is canvas.fillStyleSet. Oh no, I forgot to tell you about a thing.
Yeah. So it's like
Yes. So
it's a setter.
yes, when you do the abstract
Yeah.
model, it generates the setters.
Mhm.
So you get the set here and the set here, and also a get and a get.
So if I want to use like context, the pure JavaScript API is like context style font. So I would have to add font to the
Yes, you'd have to add another mutable field here called font, and it would probably be a string or whatever.
all right. And then I have font set.
Yes. I'm actually adding a new issue. You could have multiple heroes. No. Nawet wiem czemu. Tak? Mhm. Bo to jest tak naprawdę include iframe'a, który ma swój własny Coś się zjebało z językami tam w środku. Wiem nawet dlaczego wyczuwałem ten pull request ostatnio. Znaczy akceptowałem. Actually, you know, it could be interesting just to add another hero. Say, I'll do it while you're doing your thing. So instead of having a hero, we'll have a list of heroes. And actually, we want different colors. So what's the color of our current hero? It's this. And now we have to actually paint our heroes. So now we have to actually check if the given hero can jump. Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to log things out,
Mm-hmm.
and he complains that
Oh, it's the S is a small s.
oh, okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Nice.
Yeah, that should be zero.
Yeah, here you could just return. You could.
Yes,
just,
yes.
Yeah.
I actually made an error, and I got a compiler internal error.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yes. Well,
Okay, so you add stones at the given locations.
yes.
Cool. And then you draw the stones differently.
And collision detection was broken because it was checking only whether you are below something, but not also whether you are above.
Whoa. I like how, because once you get onto something,
Nice.
You can also try jumping right now, yeah.
yeah, I can jump higher.
And there are more blocks, like that is the font size?
Yeah. No, it won't change the size of the canvas. Just the screen resolution. So, if we add movement of the screen, like the camera movement, then we would be able to play. I love how it just wraps in. So we have a list of heroes now. Let's check how we. So now we can basically take this.
I made a pull request.
Nice. Okay, we'll do the list in a moment. Oh, it's amazing. So you're basically checking if it's above your screen size, right? If
The movement does not start before it like moves a little too far.
yeah. Although I think what we should do. So this is good, but an improvement we could make is when we generate the level. We give it a certain length. Okay, so this is always NAT. Okay, so in here we have the width and length of the canvas that will be different depending on your resolution, right? So it won't always be 200 elements because, like on this screen, it'll probably be 20 or whatever. But it's good. If you want, you can maybe try using that. Let's merge it, and yes, it doesn't move yet.
Why does is it?
Because there's like you're checking in the code. Where's that? Actually, probably because I didn't pull. Oh, it moves. Although it jumps a little.
Yeah, the rendering is kind of
Broken. Yeah, it moves.
Is as if the hero is was moving this fast?
Yeah, so the movement kind of breaks the game a little. Oh, so you're doing 200 pixels. I thought you were doing 200 tiles.
I don't know, I just tried some random number.
Sounds good. Okay. So we map our hero. Let's see if it builds. It doesn't. We don't need the world now. We just need the hero. We do it for all heroes, right? So so we look for the heroes. inside the world.
What is the prepaid lock?
Oh, it takes all of the keys from that record and it keeps them in the current object. So in this case, we'll update the heroes key, but we'll keep all of the keys from the world object, and everything on the right will overload whatever on the left. So in Haskell, this would be equivalent to something like that. Right. There's no pumps over there. Let's see if this builds. I removed too many worlds. Okay, we're 8 here. So we don't get a type error. 175. Oh yeah, and now we actually have to unwind this bit. So we'll have to loop through a list of heroes instead of a single hero as there. Is this okay? So this returns a new world. So we're file left again.
multiple heroes, it's not clear how to scroll, right? If one goes left,
Yes.
one goes right.
Well, my idea is to have multiple heroes controlled by the same keyboard, just at a different rate. Although this will be obviously super useful once we have networked heroes. Where does this end here? Yeah, this will scroll in a very weird fashion. Wasn't concat, it was append. Okay, we can still paint our one hero with the multiple heroes method. So let's try putting another hero there. And initialize. What color do we want? Yay, we have two heroes now. And in the array iter, I could get the index. So how about, actually no, let's commit that. To make the code a bit nicer, we should probably take out some of that into a separate function. Screen is so tiny now. So all of this can go in a separate function. And we can make use of the carrying. So can do it in a good old-fashioned way. And we've probably mismatched the brackets somewhere. Yep, here. And we need the math functions as well. And the compiler is actually nice enough that if we bring into scope something we don't need, it'll tell us. So we can remove it here. And it'll still work. So yeah, still works. have a PR?
Nie, czemu miałby być image tutaj w tym reasonie całym? Jest jakiś sposób, żeby po prostu asset jakiś dodać?
Dobra, tak jak tutaj date robisz, robię... Może podejmę do Ciebie, bez sensu, jak tak tutaj chcesz. Tak jak tu jest date constructor. I zobacz, tutaj to, jak wywołam funkcję create, to zrobi tak naprawdę new date bez żadnych parametrów. I to jeśli tutaj dasz jakieś parametry, to ci zrobi new image z jakimiś parametrami.
Mam cały moduł, jakby wyeksportować image?
So actually, this is a really good question. So say we want to bind into the image object. So we want to create a new instance of an image because we want to add an image. So in the same way as we have the date module bound here, we can create an image module. We don't really need to create a module here. It's just for simplicity's sake, so that we have it all in one place. So if we do an image here, and then what parameters does it accept? Is it Aussie? Is it the path of the image, or? Okay, so path, actually it will be just a string. String to an image. This way, if we do, somewhere in the function, if we do image create, and then do like this is path, we'll get an instance of an image. Oh yeah, and it's past the end time, so feel free to go if you're done.
I think you have re-enabled double jumping. I think after the latest push you have re-enabled double jumping.
It's very possible. Oh yeah, this doesn't work because this doesn't build. Oh yeah.
Also, the collision detection is broken.
Oh yeah, it's very broken. Like, I think it broke when the movement started. Oh, now we've lost that one. Yeah. Oh yeah, I removed that can hero jump function, I'm sorry. Let's try now. Yeah, now it works. Yeah, we can actually fold them into each other right now. So tomorrow we're going to play with Servant, connect this thing up to Servant so that we can get multiple players on that over network. Yeah.